Do you know the story of a man who wrestled with God and survived? A man who was born holding his brother's heel and became the father of a nation. His name was Jacob, and his journey is one of the most intense, mysterious, and inspiring in the Bible. In this video, I'm Daniel Canagero, and together we'll delve into the epic journey of Jacob, an ordinary man who had supernatural encounters, faced family conflicts, and became one of the three great patriarchs of the people of Israel. Get ready to find out who Jacob was and why his story still resonates to this day. The Bible tells us that Jacob was born holding on to the heel of his older brother, Esau. That's why his name comes from a Hebrew expression that can be translated as the one who grabs, supplanter, or the one who holds on to dominate. Some scholars also believe that the name Jacob is a shortened form of a Hebrew name that means God protects. His birth is recorded in Genesis 25:21 through 28. His mother Rebekah, like his grandmother Sarah, was barren and waited 20 years for a miracle. Isaac interceded with God on her behalf, and the Lord heard his prayer. Thus, the twins Esau and Jacob were born. Jacob lived in ancient times, and although the exact date is not known, many scholars believe that if Abraham lived between 2000 and 1900 BC, Jacob would have lived around 1800 BC. The Bible states that God had promised Abraham that through his son Isaac, he would raise up a great nation. Even though Rebekah had difficulty getting pregnant, the divine promise did not fail. At the right time, the couple had their sons. Esau, the firstborn, was the natural heir to the blessing and the promise. But even before he was born, God had already chosen Jacob to be the bearer of the covenant. This is clearly revealed in Genesis 25:23 when the Lord tells Rebekah, "Two nations are in your womb. Two peoples will be separated from your body. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." In those days, the firstborn son inherited twice as much of his father's wealth and received social and spiritual privileges, including religious leadership of the family. But one day, taking advantage of Esau's famine, Jacob bought the birthright for a bowl of stew, demanding an irrevocable oath. Archaeological discoveries show that this type of negotiation was possible in ancient Mesopotamia. Although it is not known whether there was any formal bureaucracy involved in this case, the Bible makes it clear that the oath was made and it had legal and spiritual weight. Years later, when Isaac was already old, he announced that he would give his patriarchal blessing to Esau. He asked him to hunt for food and prepare his favorite dish. But Rebekah, who knew of God's promise to Jacob, devised a plan. Using clothes and tricks, Jacob pretended to be Esau and received his father's blessing. When Esau and Isaac realized what had happened, it was too late. The blessing had already been given, and it was irrevocable. Esau was furious. Fearing for his life, Jacob fled to his relative's home in Haran. During the journey, Jacob had a dream, a ladder connecting earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending it. It was there that God confirmed the promise made to Abraham and guaranteed Jacob protection. In Haran, Jacob met Rachel, the daughter of his uncle Laban, and fell in love with her. He made a deal. He would work 7 years in order to marry her. But on the wedding day, he was tricked. Laban gave him Leah, his oldest daughter. In order to marry Rachel, Jacob had to work another 7 years. In total, he spent more than 14 years serving Laban. During this time, Jacob had children with Leah, Rachel, and the servants Zilpah and Bilhah. His sons were Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Joseph, and Benjamin, in addition to his only daughter Dinah. After many years, and with his wealth increasing, Jacob decided to return to his land. Laban tried to stop him, changing the terms of his agreement several times. However, Jacob fled and, despite being pursued, ended up making a peace pact with his uncle. On the way back, Jacob had a supernatural encounter. During the night, on the banks of the Jabbok River, he wrestled with a mysterious man. They fought until dawn. When he realized he could not defeat him, the man touched Jacob's thigh, dislocating it. Even though he was wounded, he clung to it and said, "I will not let you go until you bless me." There, the man, a divine manifestation, changed his name from Jacob to Israel, which means he who wrestles with God. The next morning, Jacob was reunited with Esau. Despite their tense past, their reunion was peaceful. Jacob then settled back in Canaan, while Esau founded another nation. The following years were not easy. Dinah, his daughter, suffered a tragedy. Rachel, his beloved wife, died giving birth to Benjamin. Reuben, his eldest son, slept with Bilhah, Jacob's concubine. And his favorite son, Joseph, was left for dead, albeit, in fact, he had been sold into slavery by his own brothers. During a time of extreme famine, Jacob was taken to Egypt, where he met Joseph, now governor of the country. There, Jacob was well received and blessed Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and his own sons, forming the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob died at the age of 147. He was buried in Machpelah along with his ancestors, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, and Leah. His story runs through the entire Bible. Jacob is mentioned in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke and is often remembered along with Abraham and Isaac as one of the great patriarchs of Israel. Even Jesus, when quoting Exodus 3:6, stated, "I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." And so, the name of Jacob, the supplanter who became Israel, remains eternally engraved in the history of God's people.